Okay, let's move on. And this is a big dark shape. I'm going to start working on that. That's going to take a new color. We're going to make it a brown, it's darker than a brick brown. So I'm going to start with a little bit of a warm red orange, and then some sienna. And then again, I need it to have more heft to it, so I'm going to add some blue. Too much heft. I'll leave that for my dark spots on it, but I'm going to start again. Some orange, some burnt sienna, and a little bit of that. I try not to mix up too much of one color at a time, otherwise your palette just turns into one big mess of a dark color, and it can be a bit overwhelming. Okay, so here, and I've changed to a round brush, and I'm going to, this comes out a little ways. We were talking about a flat wash the other day in one of my videos, and this is possibly an opportunity where you might use a flat wash, but again, because it's brick, it seems like it's going to have a lot of fluctuation. So I probably would do it just as I'm doing it. By putting these lines in here when it's a little bit wet, it's going to help as I work to make this brick light. This is much lighter on top, so I'll take most of the paint and the water out of my brush and just come up on top with mainly water. Could have been a little bit lighter, but I think I'll take a almost dry brush and just remove some of that color. And I want to make sure it's dry, so I'm pulling out all the rest of the water. And I'll remove some of the color, especially right here. There we go. Let's move over to this building. This is almost the same shade, but it's not quite so red. So I'm going to tone it down a little bit. Let's try this. You never know exactly when you're mixing color. You have a lot of experience with it, so it gives you good clues, but you never know exactly how it's going to work out. So some people just mix on their paper and that works out fine. I like to mix it generally on my palette and then to test a sample. And this is a little lighter than what I need, so I'm going to add some of the dark in. And this one has light windows, so I'm going to paint around the windows. So to do that, I'm going to switch brushes. I'm going to go to my flat brush, my bigger flat brush, my other brother, Larry. Okay. Let me see where I'm going to start here. I think I'll start right here. You can see occasionally I use my finger just to kind of scrub something out. If I've just put it in and it doesn't have to be perfectly scrubbed out, I can occasionally use my finger to scrub it out. There's kind of a neat orange tube running down here that they're using for construction to take away the construction debris, and I think I'm going to put that in. I like the really bright color. It's going to be pretty strong, and it might be too distracting, but I think I like the color, so I'm going to see if I can put that in and see if we're pleased with it. If we like it, we'll leave it in. If not, we can take it out. And I can be sloppy when I get down to the bottom here because, as you recall, I still have tape down there. I taped off the edges of the board so that, and the edges of the paper, so that I would have a, and I just went over my orange thing. That's why I tell myself, that's why I write notes to myself, like I said, so I don't oh, here we go. So I don't accidentally, there's too much paint on that. There we go. I'm not going to paint there right now because it's quite wet. I'll move to another area. When that dries a little bit, it'll be easier for me to correct that. As I've mentioned, so much of watercolor is being attentive to the wetness. You really have to pay attention. That's kind of a tricky space. I might use a different brush for that. Okay. I have a black backflow here, which I'm not happy with, so I'm going to take that out. And I'm getting little bits of backflow here, so I'm going to keep working on those so they don't become too problematic. This is brick, so I have a lot of latitude for adding different colors and different lines. And again, these being old buildings, it's not like they are perfect. The coloration has a lot of variation to it. I'm going to switch to my narrower flat brush so I can get into these smaller spaces. I'm going to let that dry, and we're going to move to another building. I'm going to clean off my palette a little bit too, so I can start with some fresh color. I just clean it off with a paper towel. You can go over and rinse it out, but for me, I hate to take that big a break, so I just like to use a little bit of a paper towel and just wipe it off. A plastic palette does stain sometimes, so it can get, so it's a little bit more difficult to see what your actual color is, but generally they work out just fine, I think, and they're lightweight. And since I'm painting outside a lot and have to carry my material, having a lightweight palette to me is helpful. Okay, so let's mix our next color, which is going to be a really pretty light pinky tan. That's not far off. I like having a little bit more of the purple in there. I want this to be pretty even, so I'm holding it the other way so it can drip. And since it's wet, the water will kind of flow down and it'll even itself out a little bit. The other half of the building is going to be a little bit darker. Again, since it's facing away from the sun, it's going to be a little bit cooler and a little bit darker. But I'm waiting for this side to dry before I do that second half. Now I can move to this, and you can see how I'm trading off between building and building. So I'm working from a dry space to another dry space. I don't want wet edges to touch each other because then they'll bleed into each other. So I think I'll move over. This building at the bottom has a almost the same tone, so I'm going to make it a little bit bluer so it's not exactly the same, but it's the same family. I'm going to put a little bit more brown in there. It's a little bit too much. That could work. I'm tilting the board to make sure it evens out the color. Then I'll just let it run all the way down. I'll go ahead and fill in this gap because it seems kind of distracting. Sometimes you can always fill in a gap. You can't make a new gap if you've already filled it in. So it's easier to leave it open and then decide if you like it. Okay, we are making progress. I will move next to this one, I believe, which is very blue and black. So I'm going to, now because I have some wet areas that I'm managing, I have to be careful when I turn my board upside down so I don't goof them up. But I think I'm in good shape. The blue is the lighter color, so I'll start with the blue. My paint has gotten a little dry. The wind will definitely do that, and it's very windy today. So when that happens, I have a spray bottle of just water, and then I can spray my paint and reconstitute and get it to the level that I like it again, so it's easier to pick up some color. That's a nice blue. I'll wait to put the black until that blue is dry. And let's see what we'll move on to next. This is a rather dark blue, so I think I'll add that while I'm in the blue family. Some of my gray has come into the blue, which works out great because I'm looking for a dark blue, so that'll just help me create my color that I'm looking for. I think that's pretty good. Okay, I'm going to even this out a little bit. There we go. There we go. There we go. Okay, now more dark blue in this window down here. I'm going to use some green so it's not going to appear so blue, it'll appear more black. And I'll grab some brown for the same reason, so it won't be quite so blue. Again, I'm going to take, that's a really dark color, so I'm going to take a little of the color out in a mottled way. There. And, okay, I've got that dark window in. These are light windows. I've got these dark windows in. These I'll have to handle in a little bit different way. I've got those in. Those blacks I'll have to handle in a little bit different way too. So let's move on. And this has this beautiful dental molding here, so I'm going to add those little details here. And then it has just a little bit of an edge. I'm going to do it kind of lost and found. I didn't put the whole thing in, I just put a little bit of it in. And I'm going to rinse off my brush so it's lighter. And I'm going to put in, it has some struts or something that are going up toward the roof. I'll put those in. Don't really know what they are, but they're kind of a gray on top of this. Now I think I'm going to try something a little bit different. I haven't tried this before, but let's see how this works. On this brick, I want to imply the brick without taking a ton of time painting on every single little brick. I don't want it to be too laborious. So I'm going to take my flat brush. It's quite dry. I can feel some moisture, but you can tell it's quite dry. I'm fanning out my flat brush, and I'm going to pick up some of this color. And I think if I fan it out, I actually want it a little bit grayer. If I fan it out, it might allow me to imply these bricks without having to paint all them. Let's see if it works. It's not fanning to my satisfaction. I might have to take a fan brush. Oh, I think that's going to work okay. Let's give it a try. So I want the angles to stay the same. It's very subtle. I wish it was a little bit more prominent, but we can go back over. You can tell it gives an idea of how the building, how the bricks are going, but it's not nearly obvious enough for me. So I'll let this dry and then I'll come back and we'll think of another technique we can use here to suggest the bricks. But for right now, we'll just let that dry. Join us on this station for new episodes. Watercolor with Jane M. Mason from WatchingPaintDryLLC. Thank you for watching.